Summoner was one of the original jobs that Final Fantasy XIV launched with in 2013, but for a lot of people, something's always been a little bit off about it. For today's video, we're going to look at the Summoner's 5.1 changes to see if the job's problems have been fixed or if the old quirks were replaced with new ones. Let's get started. Before we get into the impressions, we're going to quickly go over the most noteworthy changes that were made to the Summoner in the patch. Potencies for most of the Summoner's actions have been increased, while a few have been decreased. Tri-Disaster no longer applies the effect of Ruination, and instead deals 300 potency of damage when activated, in addition to applying Bio and Miasma. Ruin spells no longer deal bonus damage to targets with dots applied to them, and instead have a flat potency. The cooldown of Dreadworm Trance and Firebird Trance has been reduced to 55 seconds, and finally, the Eggy Assault actions have been changed from abilities to spells, and each Eggy received adjustments to their damage output. Now let's get to the good stuff. One of the main reasons I think people struggle to enjoy Final Fantasy XIV Summoner is because they have their own notion of what a pet class is supposed to be. I certainly do, and before the introduction of Demi Bahamut, Summoner felt a bit more like a necromancer mixed with a plague doctor, but a bit more colorful. They applied damage over time effects and spread them like a plague. They also had pets called Eggy, but they haven't always felt fully integrated into the job's kit. Now in Shadowbringers, there's a huge focus on the link between the caster and their pets, and in patch 5.1, the devs doubled down on this. Eggy Assaults changing from off-global cooldown abilities to instant cast global cooldown spells make me feel like a Pokemon trainer, and that's a huge compliment. For the first time since this job was created, I feel like I have genuine control over my pets, and the best part is, when I tell them to attack, they hit hard. Well, they hit hard for a Summoner, and this was one of the major complaints I had with the 5.0 iteration of the job. Eggy Assaults 1 and 2 used to deal incredibly low damage and made the job feel needlessly busy, but the attacks were also missing presence. The bigger numbers that Summoners can dish out now when they command their pets provides bigger satisfaction. Additionally, using OGCD actions on a caster can be awkward. Adding Eggy Assaults 1 and 2 to the list of instant cast global cooldown actions you can use makes it easier to find space to weave OGCDs, like Tri-Disaster, Fester, and your Demi summons. It also helps the Summoner to feel incredibly maneuverable compared to something like the Black Mage. Finally, this simple change makes the job feel a lot cleaner. Now there's a clear separation between when my Summoner is attacking versus when I'm commanding my pets to attack, and I'm no longer trying to mash these two things together. The best part is, none of these changes have caused a loss in identity for the job. They've solidified it. Despite having a lot of good to say, there are a few things about the Summoner that could use a quality pass. Energy Drain and Energy Siphon are two abilities used to generate Aether Flow, which is a resource used to activate the ability Fester for single target damage, and Pain Flare for area damage. The actions Energy Drain and Energy Siphon feel excessive, but I don't think these actions need to go away because there's something conceptually cool about draining the power from your enemies to use it against them. But these skills would benefit greatly from the automatically updating buttons we see on the Gunbreaker, Warrior, and PvP actions. Final Fantasy XIV has a ridiculous number of buttons to press, and if you look critically at every job's kit, you'll notice areas with clutter. For the Summoner, that clutter is Energy Drain and Energy Siphon. In my perfect world, when you activate Energy Drain and you gain 2 stacks of Aether Flow, your Energy Drain and Siphon buttons will automatically change into Fester and Pain Flare respectively. And something to keep in mind is doing something like this isn't a matter of making the job easier or dumbing things down, it's streamlining. It's definitely possible to go too far when trying to streamline something, but I don't think a change like this is going too far. Another minor annoyance that exists for me is the Everlasting Flight ability that Demi Phoenix uses. When you summon the Demi Phoenix, it applies a 100 potency Regent effect to you and all nearby party members for 21 seconds, and this heal ticks for what feels like a negligible amount. I think it's very cool that the Summoner has supporting elements to it, like the ability to resurrect dead teammates and a small group buff they can apply every 3 minutes, but the Everlasting Flight feels inconsequential because of its low potency. Add to the fact that I can't control when I use it, in other words it comes at a fixed point in my rotation, I can't use Everlasting Flight in the same way a healer would use an AoE heal, or even the way a bard would use Troubadour or Nature's Min at a critical moment. I don't think there's anything wrong with the AoE heal being weak, because after all the Summoner is a damage dealer, but man, it would be nice if it felt a little bit more powerful, maybe just double the potency and I'll be okay. Also, Titan Eggy is still almost completely useless. At this point they can delete him from the game and I won't care. He's decent for leveling in the open world and soloing fates, but until Final Fantasy XIV's overworld is tuned so that enemies do more than tickle you to death, the utility Titan Eggy provides won't be necessary in most situations. With that in mind, I don't necessarily think Titan Eggy needs more or better utility, but maybe he should just be removed from the game, or at the very least be an alternative skin for Ifrit Eggy. In Final Fantasy XIV, there is no designated support role. There are tanks, there are healers, and there are DPS, or damage dealers. The Summoner is a DPS, so trying to pack its kit with more support is ultimately taking it away from its intended role. However, the little bit of support that it does have make it feel like an interesting alternative to the Black Mage. To wrap things up, the Summoner has come a long way from where it started in A Realm Reborn, and it finally feels like a true pet class. Commanding my Eggy to use their special abilities and using Enkindle to send out their ultimate move feels great, and calling out a demi-summon is an exciting part of the rotation that genuinely never gets old. The animations are great, the job has a very smooth flow to it because of the changes to Eggy Assault, and its damage is very respectable. There are a few things that could be ironed out and streamlined even farther, but even still, I can say that I am incredibly happy with the 5.1 Summoner. And there we go, that's going to do it for my impressions of the 5.1 Summoner. I was enjoying it a lot at the start of Shadowbringers, and now I am enjoying it 10 times more. It feels fantastic. Again, the flow of the job is so buttery smooth, and the Summoner is a contender for one of my favorites for this expansion, and that was a big surprise for me. I think you're always going to find players that feel as if this iteration of the Summoner isn't that good, or it's not a true Summoner, but if you look at things a little bit more objectively, then you kind of have to say that they did a great job with making the class function and feel very good to play. With all of that said, we're going to wrap things up here, but don't worry, there's plenty more Final Fantasy XIV content coming in the future, so stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support the channel more than you already do just by watching, liking, subscribing, and commenting, you can head over to patreon.com/iBluairJgR to become a patron. As always, the name of the game is Final Fantasy XIV, the name of the channel is iBluairJgR. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.